Hello, and welcome to ACT WorkKeys Test Administration Training for Spring 2019. My name is Libby Lenihan, and I am an ACT Project Coordinator, and I will be facilitating today's session. My colleague is Michelle Klinsman. She is the ACT Project Coordinator who specializes in Michigan ACT WorkKeys. You'll be hearing from her throughout the year as you prepare for the test administrations. In today's presentation, we'll have a brief overview of ACT WorkKeys, discuss key dates and what's new, plus review facilities and staffing considerations. We'll also cover planning, test day activities, and post-test activities. In addition, we have some helpful tips and a list of resources to make this a positive and successful testing experience. First, let's talk about the ACT WorkKeys Work Readiness System and Test Security. The ACT WorkKeys assessments are workplace documents, applied math, and graphic literacy. The assessments measure foundational skills required for success in the workplace and help measure the workplace skills that affect job performance. The content is contemporary and relevant to today's workplace skills, keeps pace with the impacts of new technology in the workplace, and tests the skills that employers feel are used most often. Each assessment offers varying levels of difficulty. The levels build on each other, incorporating the skills assessed at the previous levels. For example, at level 5, individuals need the skills from levels 3, 4, and 5. The complexity increases as the quantity and/or density of the information increases. The ACT WorkKeys National Career Readiness Certificate, or ACT WorkKeys NCRC, is a research-based, industry-recognized, and portable credential. The ACT WorkKeys NCRC measures and certifies essential workplace skills needed for success in jobs across a variety of industries and occupations. Students qualify for the ACT WorkKeys NCRC if their assessment scores meet the following requirements. There are 4 certification levels: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Qualification for a certificate is based on a minimum score in each of the 3 assessments. In order to qualify for a platinum certificate, a minimum score of 6 is necessary on all 3 tests. A gold certificate requires a minimum score of 5, a silver certificate requires a minimum score of 4, and a bronze certificate requires a minimum score of 3. When delivering ACT WorkKeys tests, test security is the test coordinator's #1 priority. Test security is critical because the ACT WorkKeys tests are considered high-stakes tests. They can be used to get a job, keep a job, or get a promotion. So it's important to protect the integrity of the system and results. When you deliver high-stakes tests, you must do your very best to ensure every student has exactly the same experience. You can do this by following directions in the ACT WorkKeys administration manuals. One way to ensure test security is to have someone constantly monitoring the administration. It is required that testing staff walk around the test room to ensure students are working on the correct tests and to discourage prohibited behavior. If a student has a question or concern about a particular test item, instruct the student to do the best you can. Do not comment on or add any weight to the assessment. After the administration, include an explanation of the student's question and the test title on the irregularity report. If the student wants a response, include the name and address to which the response should be directed. I want to point out the consequences of poor test security with some examples. Someone tried to take a test for someone else, which highlights the importance of checking IDs to confirm the student's identity. Someone tried taking pictures of the test items. If they hadn't been stopped, they could have easily shared the information with others, which could have affected the test scores of future examinees. This isn't fair to students who don't cheat, nor is it helpful for employers who are making hiring decisions based on the WorkKeys test results. If test items are compromised, we can no longer use that test form. So ensuring test security also helps maintain lower costs for all of our customers. Let's discuss what's new for 2019. All these important dates and more are included in the schedule of events posted on the ACT-hosted state testing website and the MME list of important dates posted on the MME website. The deadline to submit the ACT Managed Participation Indicators is November 30th. This step is required by all schools, public and non-public, so ACT knows who's participating and what you want test materials delivered. If you're not participating, we need to know that too. We'll review this process when we discuss planning for the test administration. The window to submit your pre-ID student data and order your standard time and accommodations test materials using the OEAA secure site is January 7th through February 13th. Please refer to the OEAA secure site test administration tasks portion of this recording for the details on these processes. ACT will host 2 question and answer webinars, one on February 5th at 10 a.m. and another on March 19th at 3:30 p.m. This is where we present information about the WorkKeys assessment and offer you the opportunity to ask questions. Attendance in these sessions is optional, and the registration links are available on the schedule of events. The initial standard time testing must occur on Wednesday, April 10th. Initial accommodations testing is administered during a 2-week window, April 10th through the 23rd. For students unable to test during the initial testing, standard time makeup testing will occur on Wednesday, April 24th, and accommodated makeup testing occurs April 24th through the 30th. The last day ACT can receive and process answer documents for scoring is May 7th. Answer documents received after May 7th will not be processed. Answer documents received and not tested review window will be in June, and score reporting will occur in August. Students needing pre-recorded audio will use an audio USB. DVDs are no longer available in the audio kits. For easier identification, test books will now have identification symbols on the covers. The standard time test booklets have a solid triangle, and the accommodations books have a solid circle. The ACT-hosted state testing website has a refreshed look. The homepage contains a short welcome to your testing program presentation that provides a brief walkthrough of the website. To access the WorkKeys resources, click the WorkKeys on Paper link in the banner. The header area lists the important dates with a link to the schedule of events, offers quick links to other important websites, and displays the various ways to contact ACT. Resources are still organized into 7 stages, and each stage includes links to task-specific sections within the appropriate administration manuals and includes tips for success. To access each stage, either click on the link or scroll down the page. Now let's take a look at the various activities that must be completed before test day. ACT needs to know who's participating and when you want your test materials delivered. If you're not participating, we need to know that too. This process is called managed participation and is required for all schools, both public and non-public, to be completed before November 30th, 2018. All WorkKeys test coordinators should have received a Pearson Access Next email on November 5th that contained login instructions. If you did not receive this information, please call ACT for assistance. Once you've successfully logged in, the process is simple and takes only 5 minutes. Go to Setup and choose Organizations from the menu. On the Organization screen, check the box preceding your school's name, open the Select Tasks menu, check Manage Participation, and then click Start. If you participate in the WorkKeys assessment, complete the participating section by indicating the initial standard time and the initial accommodations test dates of April 10th, 2019, and then your preferred materials receipt date of either March 11th or March 18th. Be sure to click Save when you are done. If you will not participate this year, complete the Not Participating section by selecting a reason for not participating from the menu. If the pre-populated reasons do not apply to your school, choose Other and then complete the text box labeled Other Reason for not participating. Be sure to click Save when you are done. ACT sends managed participation data to OEAA daily, so you can check the Test Center participation page on OEAA Secure site to confirm you are set up to participate in the 2019 WorkKeys administration. Feel free to call ACT for assistance if you need it. If you plan on testing somewhere other than your school, go to MDE's website and submit their off-site testing request form before January 11, 2019. Next, submit your pre-ID student data and order your standard time and accommodations test materials through the OEAA Secure site. Please refer to the OEAA Secure site Test Administration Tasks portion of this recording for the details on these processes. Orders for the initial testing must be submitted no later than February 13, 2019. If you need additional materials for the initial testing, orders must be submitted March 20th through the 28th. Be sure to order early to ensure early arrival of your test materials. Orders for makeup testing must be submitted on April 10th or 11th. You should order as closely as possible the number of test forms, answer documents, and manuals that you'll actually use. Let's review testing staff requirements next. Testing staff assume important professional responsibilities to protect the integrity of all secure test materials and to ensure that all students at their school are tested under the same conditions as students at all other sites administering the WorkKeys assessment. The WorkKeys test coordinator is responsible for all assessment activities, maintaining continuity and administrative uniformity, and training room supervisors and proctors. The substitute test coordinator helps the test coordinator with all of the assessment activities. In the absence of the test coordinator, the substitute must be able to take over and provide the same level of expertise. Each testing room must have a room supervisor. If only one room is used, the test coordinator may also serve as the room supervisor. The room supervisor must serve in the same room for the entire session and is in charge of their assigned room on test day. He or she is responsible for the testing conditions in the room and will admit and seat students. The room supervisor will monitor the test session and is responsible for completing required documentation, including the test administration forms and any irregularity reports. For a full list of the room supervisor's specific responsibilities, please consult the administration manuals. In addition to the room supervisor, you may be required to have a proctor. Proctors are the room supervisor's assistants and will help admit students to the room and seat them. They are to walk around the room to monitor students and must report any irregularities, such as prohibited behavior, disturbances, or distractions, to the room supervisor right away. They also need to accompany students if they have to leave the testing room during the test. For the first 25 standard time students, or the first 10 accommodation students in a room, a proctor is not required. For larger testing groups, proctors are required, and you may choose to assign more proctors beyond the minimum requirements. For a full list of the proctor's specific responsibilities and the student-to-proctor ratios, please consult the administration manuals. When selecting your testing staff, ACT has standard policies that must be followed to protect staff and students from allegations of a conflict of interest. Examples of individuals who may act as staff include current or retired faculty members, school employees, substitute teachers, student teachers, and teachers' aides. Examples of individuals who may not act as testing staff are high school students, volunteers, lower division undergrads, anyone who will take the ACT WorkKeys within the next 12 months, individuals involved with the ACT WorkKeys test preparation for commercial gain, and anyone with relatives or wards who will be testing anywhere in the state. To protect testing staff and their relatives from the appearance of a conflict of interest, if you have a relative testing anywhere in the state during the test administration, you may not serve as a test coordinator. You may serve as a room supervisor or proctor, but not in a room where your relative is testing. And you may not have access to your relative's secure test materials. Scores for a student will be canceled if this policy is violated. If you are in doubt about who is considered a relative according to this policy, err on the side of caution. To ensure you do not assign any testing staff members that may have a conflict of interest, refer to the administration manuals, which contain more detailed information on who may and who may not act as testing staff. After you've selected your staff, conduct a training session with them on how to administer the tests in a standardized way. This is the best way to ensure that everyone understands their responsibilities and is allowed time to answer questions before test date. There is a suggested training session outline and topics for discussion section at the back of the administration manuals to help you conduct your training session. Reading and understanding the administration manuals is key to a successful administration, so all staff, the test coordinator, the substitute test coordinator, room supervisors, and the proctors, must read the manuals prior to the training session. They should also view the training videos posted on the ACT-hosted state testing website and attend one of the question and answer webinars if they have further questions. Links to register for the Q&A webinars are found on the schedule of events. The more you and your staff prepare, the more likely it is you'll have a successful testing experience. Now let's talk about selecting and preparing your testing rooms. Preparing your testing facilities is another important aspect, and there are strict guidelines to follow when setting up rooms and seating arrangements. Select the appropriate number of rooms based on the number of students testing with standard time and those with accommodations. Students using alternate test modes must be tested separately. Select rooms that are not so small as to be crowded or so large that test security will be difficult to maintain. ACT prefers single-level classroom-style seating with up to 30 examinees and recommends no more than 100 examinees in one room. All seats must face the same direction with at least 3 feet of space in all directions between students to allow testing staff enough space to walk between seats during testing without disturbing examinees. The administration manuals detail a variety of acceptable seating arrangements. Rooms must be as free from distraction as possible. Post signs outside the testing rooms that testing is in progress and quiet is required. Your school's administrators should turn off all audible signals that normally sound at the beginning and end of classes and ensure that announcements are not made on the public address system during the test sessions. Writing surfaces should be large enough to accommodate all of the examinees' test materials. Lap boards are not allowed. Bulletin board material related to potential test questions or those that provide problem-solving strategies must be removed or covered. Each room supervisor must have 2 timepieces in the test room to ensure accurate timing. An accurate wall clock may serve as one of the required timepieces. This ensures that there's a backup if one timepiece fails. Do not use a cell phone as a timepiece, as it may go off unexpectedly and cause an unnecessary interruption. Make sure the lighting, temperature, and ventilation in each room allow students to give their full attention to the tests. Please reference the ACT WorkKeys administration manuals for the full list of guidelines for testing facility requirements. Copies of each manual will be provided with the test materials, and they are posted on the ACT-hosted state testing website in the preparation stage. In your test materials, you will receive test administration form folders. The standard time version is purple, and the accommodations version is gold. These forms assist you in tracking the chain of custody of test booklets to and from the room supervisors, completing seating diagram, documenting testing start and stop times, and creating room rosters. Additional forms can be printed from the ACT-hosted state testing website in the administration stage. Test coordinators must create a student roster for each testing room. The rosters must be used to check in students and mark any absences. Absent students may be scheduled to test on the makeup date. To prepare the answer documents, apply the pre-ID student barcode labels to page 4. All answer documents must have a pre-ID barcode label, no exceptions. Apply the labels right to left so you do not cover up the black bars. Covering the black bars will delay processing. If a new student arrives in your school after February 13th, you must submit their student data in the OEAA secure site and then print a barcode label locally using the blank page of labels that ACT will send you with your test materials, or a white label you've purchased elsewhere. In your test materials, you will receive an administration supplement that contains guidelines around examinee transfers and details exceptions to the rules in the administration manuals. It also includes the state use questions that are needed to complete box 26, local items. These questions gather additional information about accommodations usage. Any question that does not apply to a particular student should be left blank. Ensure each student completes the demographic section of their own answer document, blocks 1 through 15. This activity can be done in a separate non-test session or on test day. If it is done on test day, allow an additional 15 to 30 minutes so students can complete the demographic section before the test begins. Of particular importance are the 5 match criteria: first name, last name, month of birth, day of birth, and ID number. The ID number is the state-assigned Unique Identification Code, or UIC number, found on the barcode label in front of the student's name. These 5 match criteria are used to match students' records, to create a transcript of scores, or to create an ACT WorkKeys National Career Readiness Certificate. Give students the following reminders regarding their test day. Bring a number 2 pencil with good erasers and a permitted calculator. Bring an acceptable form of identification, which includes a current government driver's license, a school photo ID, or an ACT student identification form with a photo. Personal recognition is allowed, but it must be done by school staff and does not include students who are identified by parents, friends, or phone calls. If staff do not know a student, the student must present a valid form of ID. For a full list of acceptable and unacceptable forms of identification, please refer to the administration manuals. Do not bring or access a cell phone or other electronic devices other than their calculator from the time they are permitted until the time they are dismissed. ACT's cell phone policy is to turn it off and put it away before entering the room, or keep it out of sight until the students leave the test center. If they do not follow the rules, the students must be dismissed and they will not receive test scores. Testing staff should make sure students know when and where to report for testing. Let students know about any other school-specific information, such as transportation to an off-site facility. ACT's calculator policy ensures fairness for all examinees, avoids disturbances during testing, and protects the security of the test materials. Students are allowed to use a calculator for the applied math test only, and every question can be solved without a calculator. There's space available on the test booklet where they can complete their calculations. Be sure to share the calculator policy with your students. It is their responsibility to know if their calculator is permitted or not. Staff must check calculators during the applied math test. If you find a prohibited calculator after the start of the applied math test, the student must be dismissed. Students cannot show calculators. The school may loan calculators to students. The entire calculator policy is posted on the ACT-hosted state testing website in the administration stage. It is also important to plan for any accommodations testing. Accommodations include a reader or pre-recorded audio on a USB. A reader must administer the exam one-on-one in a separate room. If using the audio USB, examinees may test in the same room as long as they wear earphones and each examinee is in control of his or her own materials and machine. Large print test booklets and large print answer documents are available for students with visual impairments or those who need assistance in recording responses. A sign language interpreter may be used to interpret test directions, passages, and items for students so long as the interpreter uses signing exact English and/or cued speech for the reader script. American Sign Language can be used for verbal instructions only. Braille and tactile graphic materials are also available. Students are not allowed to write in the Braille materials. Extended time testing options are time and a half, double time, or 3 hours. Extended time can be provided in conjunction with other accommodations. Remember that limited English proficiency, or LEP, is not considered an Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, accommodation. LEP learners are allowed to bring an ACT-approved word-to-word bilingual dictionary without word definitions. The list of approved dictionaries is available at the address on the screen. Be sure to check each dictionary before and after testing for any notes or other unauthorized testing aids. Translated test directions may also be used. If accommodations other than or in addition to ACT WorkKeys accommodations are used, the resulting scores are ineligible for the NCRC. Some examples of ACT WorkKeys ineligible accommodations include, but are not limited to, translation or interpretation of test items, use of an electronic screen reader, or dictionaries with word definitions. Some students need additional arrangements to test using standard time materials in a standard time testing room. It is a school-level decision to grant local arrangements to a student's testing with standard time if the student takes the test using standard time materials, no special format is needed, example large print or Braille, the student tests with normal breaks, no extra time, and the student tests on the initial or makeup test date. Examples of locally approved arrangements are wheelchair access or seating at the front of the room. The main consideration is that the accommodation provided might also be provided to any other student. All students are eligible and might be assigned to sit in the front of the room, but some students must be seated in the front row due to easy accessibility. Room supervisors need to know if they need wheelchair seating or if they need to seat someone at the front of the room so they can make the necessary arrangements. The test coordinator should make a note on the roster, such as seat at the front of the room, as a reminder for the room supervisor. Testing an individual student in a separate room is also a locally approved arrangement. Here are the guidelines for the documentation needed for accommodations. More details are available in the Accommodations Administration Manual. You don't need to send any documentation to ACT, but you must keep it on file in your school for 1 year. Keep in mind that some accommodations don't require documentation. If it doesn't require special equipment or a special form of the test and the timing is not changed, you do not need to collect or complete documentation. If you have any questions, please call ACT at 1-800-553-6244, extension 1788. I'll remind you of our phone numbers at the end of this session. Every test administered with accommodations must have the corresponding administration code graded on the answer document. Refer to the Accommodations Administration Manual for a full list of administration codes, as well as a summary of the available timings and formats. Now let's talk about the receipt and check-in of test materials. You should alert the staff that normally receive shipments to notify you immediately when the materials have arrived. The cartons will contain test forms, answer documents, student pre-ID barcode labels, the administration manuals, and other information such as site headers, administration supplements, and return poly mailers, plus all the materials you need to document the test day's activities and properly return the materials after testing. The cartons must be opened and the materials checked in using the packing list within 24 hours of delivery. Each item must be checked against the packing list to make sure your shipment is complete. Test booklets must be counted individually to make sure you have the exact quantity and serial numbers shown on your packing list. Detailed instructions for receipt and check-in of test materials can be found in the Test Coordinator Information Manual. Test forms are valid for use only on specific days. A colored flyer in the first box of your secure materials will indicate the valid testing days. Using forms on days other than their assigned days will result in a misadministration and the students will not receive scores. If at any time you believe test booklets are missing or may have been tampered with, contact ACT immediately. If a test form is discovered missing during testing, Do not let the students leave without first calling ACT for instructions. After verifying the contents of your boxes, and you're sure you have everything listed on the packing list, you must store the test materials in a secure area. First, reseal the cartons with tape and write your name across it, as the diagram shows. ACT requires that you follow the two-lock rule, which means 2 locks separating the general public from the test materials. An example would be locking the materials in a vault, cabinet, or file drawer inside a locked office. Only test coordinator, substitute test coordinator, and possibly a few specifically authorized individuals may have access to the secure storage area. Inspect the tape, the cartons, and the test books every time you open the carton. Be sure to retain those cartons for returning test materials to ACT. You must also document the chain of custody. You need to be absolutely certain at all times where every test booklet is and who has access to the test materials. There are several steps used for documenting the chain of custody. Use the test room report page of the Test Administration Forms folder to document the transfer of test books to the room supervisor before testing and back to you after testing is complete. Make sure the room supervisor counts the test booklets when they receive them from you and that you count them when you receive them back from the room supervisor. The test booklets must never be left unattended when out of secure storage, even for a moment. Now let's go over what you'll need to know for test day. As I said before, test security is the utmost importance. In addition to what we covered earlier, you can find a list of ACT test security principles in the back of the administration manuals. We strongly suggest you incorporate these principles into your school's administration of the ACT WorkKeys tests. On test day, you must hold a briefing session with your testing staff. This is the last chance to announce any new information since the training session, check for an absent staff member, and make any last-minute adjustments. An approved observer from the Michigan Department of Education may visit your school to observe testing and to evaluate our procedures. These visits are generally unannounced. If an observer visits your school, you must ask for an ACT employee ID, a State of Michigan employee ID, or a valid driver's license with a letter of introduction from the Michigan Department of Education for an MDE contracted observer. If you need further verification of any Michigan Department of Education observer, please call their helpline at 877-560-8378. If the visitor cannot produce those items, do not admit the individual. Call OEAA to discuss the situation. To protect students from anxiety and distractions, unauthorized persons, including parents, guardians, children, recruiters, employers, and members of the media, must not be allowed to enter, observe, or photograph testing rooms or preliminary activities. Students must be checked in at the door and their names marked off the roster. All students are required to present an acceptable form of identification or be personally recognized. Acceptable forms of identification include a current government driver's license, a school photo ID, or an ACT student identification form with photo. Personal recognition must be done by school staff and does not include students who are identified by parents, friends, or phone calls. If staff do not know a student, the student must present a valid form of ID. For a full list of acceptable and unacceptable forms of identification, please refer to the administration manuals. Be sure to mark absent students on your roster so you can schedule and prepare for makeup test date for these students. Staff are to direct students to seats. Do not allow students to choose their own seats. Seating students in alphabetical order is okay, or you can direct student 1 to the far left, then the next one to the far right as they enter the room. Absolutely no one may be admitted to the testing room after a test has started. Schedule any late arriving students for the makeup session. Remember, students are not allowed to have possession of cell phones or other electronic devices, other than an approved calculator, in the testing room. Room supervisors are allowed to have a cell phone, but it must be turned off unless it's needed to make a test-related phone call. Testing must occur only on the designated test dates. Allow 30 minutes prior to the start of the test to check students in, seat them, and complete the demographic section if they have not done so prior to test day. Testing can begin as soon as students who reported on time are seated and should begin no later than 9 a.m. Standard time testing requires that all students be given the entire time allowed, and students may not be dismissed until the entire room has completed the test. Encourage students to review their work in the remaining time. Accommodation students testing time and a half, double time, and 3 hours may move ahead if all the students in the room finish before the time is up. The ACT WorkKeys tests must be administered in the following order: workplace documents first, then applied math, and finally graphic literacy. Tests administered out of order will result in a misadministration and will not be scored. ACT requires that you allow a 15-minute break at the end of applied math to allow examinees to relax or go to the restroom. No cell phones may be used during the break. Students cannot take any test materials from the room. One staff member must stay in the room to ensure security of materials. If any students do not return on time, resume testing without them. Late students may be readmitted but may not make up lost time. Ensure you are providing each testing room with the appropriate materials by referencing the shape on the test booklet cover. Standard time booklets have a solid triangle, and accommodations booklets have a solid circle. The proper distribution of test booklets is critical in every room. Distribute the booklets only after students are seated and when prompted by the instructions in the administration manuals. Test booklets should be distributed individually in an unbroken sequential order. This maintains the security of the test booklets and helps the room supervisor create accurate seating diagrams, since the serial numbers of all test booklets must be recorded on each testing room's seating diagram. The seating diagram is included in the test administration forms folder. Remember, at no time should the test booklets be left unattended. The timing of each test must be observed exactly, including the break schedule. At least 2 timepieces should be used to time the test. Using a wall clock and a watch together will ensure that there's a backup if one timepiece fails. Do not use a cell phone as a timepiece to avoid the risk of an unnecessary interruption. For larger testing situations where more than one room is used, do not attempt to time the tests from one central location or use the intercom to broadcast the verbal instructions. Central timing does not allow for questions from students to be adequately addressed or for disruptions, such as a sick student, to be handled without disrupting the testing experience for the entire school. Use the timing report in the test administration forms folder to record the timing for each test and the break. Record the actual time when the verbal timing announcements are called for each test. It's very important that you time the test properly and recording the times accurately to avoid a misadministration and cancellation of student scores. In addition to the start and stop announcements, there is a 5 minutes remaining announcement that provides students a heads up that the stop time is approaching. It also serves as a time check to ensure that your total time for that test is accurate. Stress to your testing staff the importance of being attentive during testing. Advise testing staff to walk around the room during testing to ensure students are working on the correct test and to discourage prohibited behavior. Make it clear in your training, and again on test day, that testing staff need to concentrate only on test-related activities during the administration. This means no grading papers, reading, chatting, or eating or drinking in the testing room. Staff should never leave a test room unattended at any time. The only material staff should have in the testing room is the appropriate administration manual and the test administration forms folder for that room. If there are irregularities, ACT needs to know about them. Complete an irregularity report for each room in which an individual or group irregularity is observed. The form and complete instructions are located in the administration manuals. Group irregularities affect a room or multiple rooms of students. An example is a fire drill. An individual irregularity is one that affects a single person or several individuals involved in a single circumstance. An example would be a sick student. Call ACT immediately so we can help resolve any of the following problems: missing or defective test materials, duplicating test materials, mistiming, inclement weather, emergency evacuations, power failure, disturbances or distractions, student illness, and irrational or prohibited behavior. Use your best judgment in each situation. If you have to stop testing, record the time and call us. Always put the safety of the students first. For minor distractions, you do not need to call ACT. However, make sure you document the distraction on the irregularity report. If there are any complaints, your test day observations will help us resolve the issue fairly. If a student has a defective test booklet, you'll need to replace it. No one is permitted to duplicate or record any part of the assessment, including copying, taking notes, photographing, scanning, or using any other means. In all cases, students caught must be dismissed, their answer document must be voided, and then attached to an irregularity report. If a student is sick and unable to finish, dismiss the student from the room and mark the answer document void. Examinees who become ill are eligible for make-up testing. If a student is irrational or disruptive, warn or dismiss the student as appropriate. In all cases, refer to the administration manuals for guidance and always file an irregularity report. The following prohibited behaviors can result in dismissal: creating a disturbance, giving or receiving help, possessing a cell phone, and violating calculator rules. Refer to the administration manuals for a full list of prohibited behaviors. If you suspect a prohibited behavior has occurred, discreetly remind the student of the rules and ask a colleague to help verify your observations. If you are sure a prohibited behavior has occurred, no warnings are necessary. Dismiss the student firmly and quietly, avoiding a disturbance if possible, and inform the student that you are going to void the assessment and no test scores will be received. Do not schedule a student dismissed for prohibited behavior for the make-up test date. Note the occurrence on the irregularity report. Make sure you have a procedure in place to handle dismissed students. For example, where will they go after leaving the test room? Home? To the office? Don't dismiss a student or void a test if the student is simply doodling on their test book and not disrupting others. As a reminder, always document everything that happens in the testing rooms. If testing staff wish to report test security issues anonymously, there is a toll-free anonymous security hotline to call, or the information may be reported online. Details can be found in the back of the administration manuals. Once testing is complete, there are a few things that need to be done. Before dismissing testing staff, test coordinators should take a few minutes to check each room supervisor's test administration forms folder and materials for accuracy and completeness. Be sure all test booklets are accounted for and documented on the test room report page, and that the appropriate signatures are present. Ensure the seating diagram page is complete with student's name, test booklet serial number, and numbered unfinished ovals. For standard time testing, check the timing report page to ensure accurate time was kept. For accommodations testing, check the administration report page to ensure accurate time was kept and the administration codes have been documented. Double-check the roster page to be sure every name is marked with an ID type or a dash if the student was absent. If R is marked, indicating a personal recognition, make sure the staff member added his or her initials. For every F marked on the roster, there should be a student identification form with a photo collected from the student and attached to the roster. Verify that you have an answer document for every student who tested. All student responses recorded in the test booklet or large type answer document must be transferred to a scannable answer document. ACT will not provide scores for any responses provided in test booklets or on large type answer documents. The test coordinator must arrange to transfer the responses to the answer document in the examinee's presence after testing. Finally, review any irregularity reports and verify that any voided answer documents are attached to it. You should keep copies of all rosters so you have a record who did and did not test, particularly those who were absent or dismissed for prohibited behavior. Also, keep copies of the irregularity reports and any accommodations paperwork. You should retain this documentation in your school for 1 year. You will use processing envelopes and prepaid polymailers to return all used answer documents and test administration forms. The required documents are the testing staff list, the test administration forms folder, the site header, and finally, the answer documents to be scored. Please use the pre-printed site header to ensure prompt processing of your answer documents. Failure to use the pre-printed header will delay the processing of not only your school, but all other schools received after yours. If applicable, also include the student identification forms, large type worksheets, reader, interpreter, and transcriber agreement, and voided or replaced answer documents. Place all these items in the appropriate standard time or accommodations processing envelope, and then place the envelope in a prepaid poly mailer for return to ACT. When returning test forms, please reuse the original cartons that you received your test materials in. The cartons have been pre-addressed and prepaid. Just reverse the flaps to expose the ACT Distribution Center address. Using other boxes delays the return process since you'll have to call ACT for additional return FedEx labels. The used and unused test booklets go on top. You must return all your test booklets, both used and unused. Return all alternate test formats and the translated test directions too. Mark the cartons 1 of X, 2 of X, etc., where X represents the total number of cartons being returned. There are specific instructions in the Test Coordinator Information Manual about how to properly return the test materials. All cartons must be sealed and stored securely until they're picked up by the return carrier, FedEx. You're responsible for them and must protect them from unauthorized access or damage until they're in the return carrier's possession. All testing materials are scheduled for pickup the day after testing to ensure your answer documents and test materials are received at ACT by May 7th, 2019. The standard ACT WorkKeys reporting package will be sent in August. The individual summary score report is a student-level report providing information to the student about their scores and what it means to be at that skill level. The summary score report is also a student-level report that provides information on their scores but without the explanations. The roster report is a school-level report listing the students, the tests taken, and the scores they received. Reports are sent to the WorkKeys test coordinator, who is then responsible for distributing the individual summary score reports to the students and retaining the summary score reports and the roster report. Once students receive their individual summary score report, they can create their own account on myworkkeys.com using the following match criteria: first name, last name, month of birth, day of birth, student ID, which is their state-assigned unique identification code. Students who qualify for an ACT WorkKeys and CRC can print their own certificate for free. Certificates are not printed or shipped to schools for distribution to the students. After creating their account, they'll go to Certificate Management, select Create Certificate in the Actions drop-down list, and then follow the prompts to print their own ACT WorkKeys and CRC. Students who do not qualify for a certificate will see a message stating that a certificate is not currently available. A quick start guide is available on the login page that explains this process and the other features available in myworkkeys.com. Let's look at ways to ensure success for you and your students. Let's review the key dates again. For a full list of important dates, please refer to the schedule of events posted on the ACT-hosted state testing website and the MME list of important dates on the MME website. Submit your pre-ID student data and order standard time and accommodations test materials via the OEAA secure site, January 7th through February 13th. Attend one or both question and answer sessions. The first one will be held on February 5th, and the second one will be held on March 19th. Receive your test materials either the week of March 11th or March 18th, depending upon what you choose during managed participation. Order any additional materials needed for the initial test administration March 20th through the 28th. The initial standard time test date is April 10th, and the initial accommodations test window is April 10th through the 23rd. Order any makeup test materials in the OEA secure site on April 10th and 11th. Test your makeup standard time students on April 24th and your accommodation students April 24th through the 30th. The deadline for ACT to receive answer documents for processing is May 7th. answer documents received after May 7th will not be processed or scored. We've covered these points throughout this session, but they're so important that they're worth mentioning again. To help your administration go smoothly, here are a few things to do and a few things not to do. Ensure every answer document has a barcode label, no exceptions. Do not allow cell phones or electronics in the testing room. Administer the tests in proper sequence. Do not allow extra or extended breaks for standard time students. Do not throw away the cartons that the test materials arrived in. Use them to return the test materials to ACT. Use the pre-printed site header to ensure prompt processing of your answer documents. Make sure your test materials are ready for pickup on the scheduled pickup date. The deadline to receive answer documents for scoring is May 7th, 2019. Answer documents that are received late will not be scored. Finally, if you pack your test materials incorrectly for return to ACT, there is no guarantee that they will be scored. There are a number of resources available to you before, during, and after the test administration process. Each week, MDE publishes a newsletter, the Spotlight on Student Assessment and Accountability. Be sure to review the ACT WorkKeys section for upcoming events and important information. ACT Customer Service is not able to answer any state policy or eligibility questions. Please contact the Michigan Department of Education, the Office of Educational Assessment and Accountability, at the phone number or email listed here. Here are links to two key ACT WorkKeys websites. The ACT WorkKeys State Testing website contains all the information, including documents and links to other ACT sites, that you'll need to administer the ACT WorkKeys tests in your school. The ACT WorkKeys website is a public site where you, students, and parents can find more information about the ACT WorkKeys assessments. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please call ACT Customer Care at 800-553-6244, extension 2800 for any standard time testing questions, or extension 1788 for accommodations questions. Or you may email us using the contact form link. Thanks again, and have a great day.